So since this is a STEM for Palestine event, we have to talk about the complicity of tech and of science within the Palestinian genocide and within war crimes at large. And for this purpose, we are going to call out a specific, very high target on the BDS list, which is Microsoft. And for this, we are now going to introduce Azure for Apartheid to speak on the complicity of Microsoft within the occupation of Palestine and what we can do.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
Say it loud and say it clear.
Say it loud and say it clear.
UC Berkeley is a war profiteer.
UC Berkeley is a war profiteer.
Say it loud and say it clear.
Say it loud and say it clear.
Microsoft is a war profiteer.
Microsoft is a war profiteer.
Thank you everyone for being here, and I'm honored to be in community with you all. I'm honored to be in community with Peyrin here today. And I am Abdo. I am an organizer with Azure for Apartheid. I am a former Microsoft worker. I am a former CS student. And today, I wanted to come to talk to you all about the role that these tech companies, and specifically Microsoft, play as a technological backbone of Israel's occupation, as a technological backbone of Israel's apartheid, as a technological backbone of Israel's genocide. I think over the past couple of years, we have come as workers within Microsoft to discover the role that our labor was enabling, right? We just came to discover how Microsoft built a mass surveillance weapon that would go on to store what we call 1 million calls an hour, collecting every call, every text on Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. And then, in turn, the surveillance data would be used to authorize deadly airstrikes in Gaza, would be used to harass, blackmail, justify the extrajudicial killing of Palestinians in the West Bank, would be used to enforce the system of apartheid, would be used to help power the starvation and torture of Palestinians in Gaza. And I think in a lot of ways, when we kind of discovered this as workers inside the company, right, we were faced with a question that hopefully, and maybe a lot of people are thinking about. What are some of these individual workers? Can these individual workers take on a $4 trillion company? It's been, I think, around 7 months into the genocide. Is it little too late? And I think in being in community and recognizing that as workers, as tech workers or workers in technology, we are just, joining a long tradition of workers who mobilize and refuse to be cogs in the Israeli genocidal war machine. We refuse to be cogs in the Israeli war machine and launched No Azure for Apartheid. No Azure for Apartheid as a campaign is aimed to force Microsoft, not ask, not demand, but force Microsoft to cut its ties with the Israeli military and government. And I think stemming from understanding our positions as workers, right? We are the workers who enable this genocide. Our technology, the code that we write, the meetings that we attend, the checks that we get at the end of every month in our banks are coming, our profits that are coming from the murder of Palestinians, right, are coming from profits that the company is raking in from selling technology that power occupation, apartheid, and genocide. And in this realization, we understand that we, the workers, are best positioned to halt this technological bombs and bullets. We are best positioned to enforce a form of digital arms embargo where we end the sale of cloud and AI technology to Israel. But also understand another position, that as the workers who are within this company, we need to understand the role that Microsoft play, circulate so that people understand that this company is hiding behind an ethical facade, right? When you search Microsoft and United Nations, you do not get the fact that Microsoft was cited in Francesca Albanese's report from economy of occupation to economy of genocide. You do not get the fact that Francesca Albanese is asking nation state to force these companies to stop the sale of this dual-use technology. You do not get that. You get the fact that Microsoft has an office at the United Nations. When you search Microsoft AI, you do not get the fact that Microsoft AI is being used to transcribe, translate, and populate target banks that are being used against Palestinians in Gaza. You get the fact that Microsoft runs an AI summit for responsible AI. So we understood that as part of the work that we needed to do is to call out this hypocrisy, to dismantle this facade, to circulate the fact that Microsoft technology is part of occupation, is powering genocide, is powering apartheid. But then it's not just understanding our position, it's not just circulating the fact that Microsoft is part of the Israeli genocidal war machine. It's understanding that it's not a nameless entity that is making these decisions. There are these executives named Satya Nadella, Brad Smith, Justin Althoff. These are the people who are shaking hands with Israeli war criminals like Benjamin Netanyahu, who are shaking hands with Israeli war criminals like Yossi Sariel, who are signing onto these contracts. So in order to stop these contracts, in order to force that divestment, we must create crisis for these individuals. We must hold these individuals accountable. For more than a year and a half, our campaign has really focused on these three angles. We are the workers, so we must build a strong worker base to halt the Israeli genocidal war machine. We understand Microsoft's role in genocide, so others should also understand Microsoft's role in genocide, and that we must create crisis for these individuals like Satya, Brad, and Judson. We tabled, we had open letters, we went and took pledges not to support the Israeli military internally. We had protests, we had visuals, we did encampments, we staged sit-ins, we supported shareholder resolutions, we supported legal filings in other countries. But all of these tactics, all of these, under all of this pressure, Microsoft in September 2025, as the first US company or US tech company divested from some of its service that was giving to Unit 8200. This is the very first instance of a company stopping the sale of its technology or some of its technology to the Israeli military since the beginning of the genocide. And this is a win not just for the campaign, right? This is a win for the movement, that it is under the right pressure, under the consistent mounting and escalating pressure, that these institutions are bound to fall, are bound to be forced to listen to our demands. But we know it's insufficient. We understand that Microsoft only divested part of its sale of technology to the Israeli military and government. We know that there are still contracts that are still intact right now. We know that technology or surveillance technology is still being hosted in data centers in Europe, powered by Microsoft technology. So we understand that the struggle against these corporations doesn't stop at the sign of the first material win. It does not stop at the sign of a PR statement. It does not stop also at the sign of repression. Microsoft did not divest out of the goodness of their hearts. Microsoft fired people, put people under investigation. Microsoft forced people to quit. Microsoft shut down areas where workers were speaking up. I myself was fired for holding a vigil last year, for honoring the martyrs that were falling victim to the same technology that I was working on. And I think that's really important. When we stand here today and the repression that Peyrin is experiencing, the repression the students are experiencing on this campus, we need to realize that If they weren't scared of us, they would not have done that. If they weren't afraid of the change that we can bring into this world, they would not have done that. And this is them going through desperate attempts to quell the movement, desperate attempts to silence our voices. And what do we say to that? We will not be silenced. We will not be silenced. We will not stop. The work continues. We have to make sure that this miscalculation that they had, they thought that they could set a precedent that speaking up on campus or talking about the real role of technology in our world today would stop us from, just by suspending Peyrin for 6 months, right, without pay, that we would stop. But look at us here today. We are committed to making change. We are committed to fighting these institutions. We are committed to holding people accountable. It doesn't matter if it's Microsoft, it doesn't matter if it's the administration at UC Berkeley, you will hear from folks about Google and Amazon. We hold these institutions accountable because that is our role in the struggle. We must create crises for these institutions. We must continue knowing that they will come after us, but that actually empowers us to do even more. To wake up every day and not to think, have I done enough? But ask, what can I do more? In the middle of finals week, students who are here, community who are here, we are faculty who are here, we are best positioned to hold UC Berkeley accountable. We are best positioned to tell folks about the role that UC Berkeley does as a genocide profiteering institution. We are best positioned to create a crisis for this administration to stop the investment, to stop the genocide profiteering from continuing to go on. And I think, in closing, I wanted to, iterate what the previous speakers have shared, that our goal is not, a PR statement. Our goal is not, one-time divestment. Our goal is a liberated Palestine within our lifetime, so that must be the compass. That means that the work does not stop under repression. The work does not stop when they eventually, UC Berkeley will come back to this moment and say, it was on our campus that people stood up to the genocide, and they will write about it on their websites, and they will try to co-opt our movement, but when they do that, we will be there. We will be there to reclaim our movement from co-optation, to reclaim our movement, because we, the people, are the ones who will be liberating Palestine. Here in the diaspora, back home in Palestine, we are the ones who take this movement and move forward with it. Whether we are students in classes learning about this technology that's being used against our people in Palestine, whether we are faculty who are teaching about this technology, whether we are even people who are within the university administration who are trying to fight within the system, whether we are workers who are using this technology and developing this technology, we are the people who will liberate Palestine within our lifetime. Thank you, everyone. Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
Free, free, free Palestine.
Free, free, free Palestine.
Say it loud and say it clear.
Say it loud and say it clear.
Microsoft is a war profiteer.
Microsoft is a war profiteer.
Say it loud and say it clear.
Say it loud and say it clear.
Microsoft's a war profiteer.
Microsoft's a war profiteer.
Free, free Palestine.
Free,